And welcome to the creative mode where I have a Hippotos here in my lovely silver and blue colors, and that is because that last Hippotos that I fought in the last episode, or the second Hippotos I fought in the last episode, I managed to capture it. Now, don't be too impressed, I managed to capture it because it ran out of fuel, fell into the water, and I hopped in and blew up its AI. So because I've captured it, I've allowed myself to open it up in the sandbox mode and take a look at it. And honestly, it's really cool, and it's not exactly what I was expecting in terms of this design, in terms of having just sort of looked at it and fought it in the campaign. But my goal for today is to build something that can reliably kill this thing for less than its cost. So the Hippotos cost 387,000 points. I want to build something that costs significantly less than that and is good at killing this sort of thing. Now, normally, I think I don't build things with the specific intent of destroying a specific enemy. But in this case, I feel like that's a pretty good investment because this type of ship is something that's been just sort of a glaring weak point in my builds so far. Something that's big and fast and maneuverable and can hit hard at a long range. And so my thought is to build something that's maybe about the same size, at least comparable in size. I mean, this thing's volume is only 22,000, so it's maybe 2/3 the volume of the Cornigon. And so I want something that's about this size and that flies, that is fast, and that can very specifically hunt things like this. Now, the reason I've opened it up in the sandbox mode here, very specifically, is that I want to see how fast it goes, because obviously we need to be at least the same speed or preferably faster. I was looking to see how this thing managed to achieve 160 meters per second, and yes, it does use several custom jets that are on the inside here. You can see that on the outside there are some regular jets, and then there's 4 holes. Well, those 4 holes there lead to custom jets on the inside. Now, because this thing is more compact than the Cornigon, the custom jets are actually a lot less fuel efficient, so you can see it is burning through fuel very, very, very quickly, which is how I managed to capture this thing, because honestly, it can't stay in the air for all that long, and if you can survive its laser fire, it's gonna fall down before too long. So I want my ship to not have that problem. And I think we're not going to rely on lasers for this thing, just because I want my interceptor to have lots of laser protection, obviously because the enemies we're fighting right now have lots of lasers. And it's just easier to make a ship be protected against lasers if you don't use lasers yourself. Alright, so all that said, I'm going to hop on over, I'm going to delete this thing, hop on over to just start building, and we'll talk a little bit about my plans. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking in terms of designing this thing. I'd actually like something that is sort of wide at the front here, where it's displaying its weapons and it has lots of armor, lots of shielding, things like that. And then I'd like it to sort of taper off a bit towards the back. And I don't want it to end in a point exactly, but I do want it to taper off so it becomes a bit more narrow towards the back. And the reason is this thing, as a large interceptor craft, will be designed to face its target, to fly at its target and go at them head on. And so if I do it that way, then I can have more armor on the front, more shielding on the front, and that will ideally be what is usually being hit by the enemy's weapon. Now, for weaponry, I'm thinking 2 advanced cannons, one on either side here. And then I'm considering having sort of a central particle cannon, because I feel like a particle cannon is a very good weapon to fight enemy flyers, just because it's able to sort of pierce through their armor and hit those squishy bits in the middle. And flyers, especially really fast flyers like the Hippotos, more than anything are very vulnerable to having their squishy bits on the inside blown up. Plus, we haven't used particle cannons yet in this campaign, and it's a weapon type that I like quite a lot. So we'll build the design, I think, and then we'll see sort of what we have room with. Now, I want all the weapons to be fixed mounting, so they're not on turrets, so I don't have to worry about things rotating around on the inside, so I can make them more powerful without having to worry about the logistics of turret turning. And since this thing should be facing its target, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Okay. Now that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I will begin the lovely time-lapse here, and let's just sort of see what comes of this. Okay, so this is the basic shape that I'm thinking of. Now, there will be a lot more rounding off to be done. It's probably going to go a bit higher and a bit lower than this, so I have plenty of space on the inside for everything that I need, as well as plenty of armor on the top and bottom as well. I made the side armor about 2.5 meters thick for most of it, 2.5 or 3 meters thick for most of it, which is really all I want to do in terms of outer armor. Now, the really important components I may give a little more armor to, but I want this thing to rely on speed, and I want it to rely on shielding more than heavy armor. Because obviously I want this thing to go fast, and weight is a problem when it comes to moving fast. So I think what I will do now is I will install the guns. And the guns are normally things that I leave more towards the end, just to sort of see what I have space for. But in this case, I want to fill this thing with guns, or rather fill this thing with gun components, so that I then can see what I have room with, or what I have room to work with, other than that. Because this thing is going to be or it needs to be a very fast-moving vehicle, so I need lots of room for engines, lots of room for thrusters, lots of room for fuel, things like that. And so I need to go ahead and sort of compartmentalize the weapons. So I'll do that, and then we'll get back to sort of general building. I'm going to save building the top and the bottom of this thing until I get most of the inner workings built, and that's just for my sanity, so I can see inside, so I can see through it without having to, you know, cram my camera inside an interior thing. Alright, well, let's get back to it then. Alright, so those are the guns. At least those are the guns for now. I may end up changing them some. as I go along. My plan is to make them heat cannons. Expect some little changes to what I'm doing here or there, and I apologize for my inherent wishy-washiness. But let's get back to it. Alright, so it's starting to shape up. I'm very not happy with the front of the craft right now. I think it's a little too... something. I couldn't tell you what right now, but it's a little too something. The inner workings on camera here. And I know the inner workings, like building the custom jets and the gun pieces and stuff. Like that's not nearly as interesting as, you know, designing the hull of the craft. So I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and fill this thing out just a bit more so that I'm mostly happy with the interior workings of it. And then after that, I'll come back on camera and we'll design the shape of this thing's hull. So I'll be back after I've filled out some gubbins. Okay, after a good bit of work on this thing, I have pretty much filled out the inside of it. And I'm actually quite pleased with just how neat and orderly everything looks. It was kind of lovely to build something like this, where it's just one huge compartment and I just sort of break it down. I actually got out a bit of graph paper and planned out where I wanted to put things, which I know makes me just the biggest nerd in the world, but it was a lot of fun to do this. Every single space in here is filled out pretty much. It is just a really nice sort of layout here, and it's got everything I need. Well, so it's got quite a lot of ammo storage, but as you can see, as it's reloading, or as it's loading its weapons for the first time, it's running out of ammo just because the weapons can hold so much. But when the weapons are fully loaded, it should take them a very, very long time to actually run out of ammo, and our ammo processors should be able to keep up with that ammo demand. So in addition to the first two weapon types that I've built, the heat cannon here, the heat cannons here, and the miniguns on the sides, I have built a particle cannon, which has 4 barrels, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. Not the strongest particle cannon in the world, because you can see it's pretty self-contained in there. It's not huge, but it doesn't use a ton of energy. In fact, these batteries here, you can see they're not connected to an electric engine. They instead are just there for the particle cannon, and these batteries here and then these sets of RTGs here are every. I've also worked out how much fuel I'll need for these engines, how much fuel or rather for the jets here, and how much fuel I'll need for these 3 engines that are in the center. Things should be worked out pretty well for this thing to run for a good... I'm hoping that it will be enough. And also, you know, I'm going to start bringing my pack mules and their fuel processors back into battle, because I have a very strong fuel demand at the moment. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this thing's hull up. And essentially what that's going to entail is the entire inner compartment here will be enclosed in heavy armor. So we're gonna do that, and so I'm gonna get back into the time-lapse part of this video, so that we can just sort of build the hull up. Okay, so I keep it in the air, and if it's not, I can just add more thrusters. Now, what I'm considering right now is what on earth to put right here, because this is just flat. I'm probably going to change this around here, probably going to make the metal bits into heavy armor just so that they match the pattern of the rest of this bit here. As for what goes here, I honestly don't know. Something definitely needs to go here. I mean, there's no question about that, because it's too blank right now. It's too bland. So I need to figure out something that I can put up here. And I feel I'm pretty good on weaponry. This thing is only at 180,000 points, so it's actually less than half the price of the Hippotos. So if this thing can beat the Hippotos, it will be a pretty incredible feat. And I just realized I need to make the barrel of the miniguns a bit longer there, so they extend out past the armor bit there. Yeah, I need to figure something out to put up here. And you probably noticed, if you watched the time lapse there, that I was really, really wishy-washy with it. I kept changing my mind about things and deleting stuff and putting stuff back and trying again and stuff like that. Even more so than usual, just because this is a very interesting kind of intricate build. And I think normally what I would put here would be some sort of command bridge, but I don't think that would look good. That would kind of take away from the sleekness of the build. Besides, it's already got this tiny little cockpit at the front here, from which there is no escape. Let me think about it, and I'll be back when I have made some sort of decision as to what to put here. Probably it will have something to do with the detection system, because I haven't added the detection system to the ship yet. And, you know, there are a million places where I could put it, but... Sorry about that, I bumped the microphone a bit. But if I had sort of one big area at the top where all the detection went, then that would be good. I mean, this thing doesn't need a ton of detection all around it. It really just needs detection facing forwards and maybe a little bit to the sides. I'll think about it, and I'll be back when I have something a bit more concrete. Extensive work. This is what I've come up with so far. Now, obviously, it's not done. I don't want the cockpit to be simply a little wheel and silly. And it needs a paint job, and actually, for once, I know how I'm going to paint this thing, so that shouldn't be too hard. It needs some balancing stuff. You can see the PID it still needs some tweaking. I need to play with its detection because I haven't really tested this thing in combat yet. Lots and lots of tweaking to be done, but I think for the most part, this is going to be the finished design. Now, this thing is very, very agile. I'm just going to turn us to the right here. And as you can see, it turns very, very well. Now, the reason it went forward as well as just turning to the right is because I've set up some automatic control blocks to where they work with the forward thrusters as well, so that when it has the command to turn right, it turns off the thrusters on the right-hand side, so that pushes it forward. What I might do is turn it off so that it turns on thrusters as well. It just turns off thrusters, but you know, that's just something I'll need to play around with. So I added some simple lasers to the front here with some pretty narrow firing restrictions. Hopefully they will work out fairly well. Now, what I don't want to do is I don't want to put this thing up against the Hippotos in the creative mode because, well, it's designed to fight it, and it would be kind of anticlimactic if we just sort of, you know, ran that battle over and over and over again until we got it just right. And then we brought it into the campaign, and we knew that we were going to win every single time. So I want to test this thing against other ships, not the Hippotos, but I want to save the Hippotos for actually being in the campaign. We did manage to break 160 meters per second with this thing. It is a very, very fast craft. It's a very agile craft. It's programmed to basically zero in on a ship, shoot at it with all of its guns with no rate of fire limitations, just let out the full burst, and then fly past it, turn around, and do it again, almost like an attack run. And even though it uses the naval AI rather than the aerial AI, but it's something I might play around with, honestly. This might actually be a very good ship to use a Lewis script, although I usually shy away from Lewis scripts because if I can, maybe I'll try to figure something out with making this thing work. But let's spawn our lovely test ship, the Irie, and we'll see how we do. Turning immediately. Yeah, we do have a very, very good turning radius here. It is a very, very agile ship. You can see it's shooting all of its guns immediately there, getting lots and lots of hits. Very, very brutal barrage there. These are these again are 250 millimeter 4-meter shell heat shells that shoot very, very quickly, or rather they shoot in very fast, unsustainable bursts, which is exactly what this ship wants to do. Because it's not going to be aiming at its target all the time. It's only going to be aiming at it some of the time. So we've come around. There are some of those... Ooh, those lasers are very loud. They didn't hit anything. But, yeah, we're absolutely raking across this thing with these really powerful burst weapons. And that's exactly what I want to do, because fighting something like the Hippotos, it's not about sustained DPS. They're just too fast. They're too agile for it. It's about damaging it enough to where you can slow it down. And if you can slow something like that down, then it's going to be a lot easier to fight. So that's a ton of damage right there. I might take these silly little things away. They are pretty loud, and they don't seem to actually be hitting anything. Even though I just love the idea of having them there. I think they need to be... Maybe I can put them on a turret. They're small enough to where I could fairly easily put them on a turret if they're worth it. Now, they do have a hard maximum range of 500 meters, which is actually okay because this thing is designed to basically get as close as it possibly can, and that usually is well within 500 meters. Yeah, so we are literally flying in circles around the Eyrie here. I do want to play around with the AI some more, and in fact, if you have some suggestions for how to make an AI like this work a little better, just to where it's, you know, it always wants to get around and face its target, because we get these little movements, right? I don't know if you saw that there, but we were in a really good position to turn around and get right behind it, and then we kind of jolted to the left, went forward a bit, and then turned around to the right. We sort of missed our opportunity. 0. So that we are always trying to get 0 degrees, which means we should be trying to face our target at all times with no deviation. It does, you know, go in and out of broadside fairly quickly, so that it's able to, you know, once it gets too close, it just gets out of that attack run and moves on. Yeah, I'm taking those lasers away. That's just silly. But it doesn't do exactly how I want it to do. Now, obviously, the Eyrie is a little bit of a low-hanging fruit here for a ship like this. This thing is designed to keep up with incredibly fast ships. Very, very fast enemy flyers like the Hippotos. And so it is behaving a little strangely, fighting something that is essentially a stationary target, which is really not what it's designed to fight. Ideally, we'd be fighting something that's moving around very quickly. But again, I don't want to test it against the Hippotos in the creative mode. I want to say that for the campaign. So, I'm going to go ahead and call the episode here. Off camera, I am going to do a lot of work on this thing, a lot of fiddly little things, a lot of design stuff. It does need a fresh coat of paint, or it does need just a coat of paint, full stop. So I'll be doing that. Some other design stuff, obviously I'll be building a real cockpit, or not, or I might just put, you know, a control thing on the inside of the ship somewhere, where it's not going to get into the way. But let me know what you think. If you like this sort of thing, if I know this is a weird ship. Just overall, it's a weird ship. But I'm finding I quite like how the design turned out. I'm very pleased with it. It's just that a design like this is going to take a lot of fiddling to get right. A lot of little changes to make this thing actually work very, very well, and that's going to take quite a lot of time. But thank you so much for watching. Again, let me know what you think in the comments below if you have any recommendations, anything like that. I certainly do appreciate it. I've gotten some wonderful recommendations from you guys, and I will see you in the next video.